Good morning. How do I look today? I look good? Hair's a little bit long, but I'm getting it cut Monday at 3 p.m., so that's good. How do you look today? Not good, huh? Does it matter? Why are you here? I don't mean like, why did you come here this morning? I mean, why are you even here? Did you decide to be here? You didn't decide to be here? Oh. I'm looking out at all of you. It is kind of interesting. I've noticed that each one of you has 2 eyes. How come none of you came with 3? Did you think about that this morning when you woke up and you were eating your Wheaties? No, I didn't either. I thought of it right now. I've also noticed, and this is kind of strange, you got 2 eyes, you got 2 ears, you got 2 hands, you got 2 feet, but you got 1 nose. You kind of got shorted on the nose, but the weird thing about that 1 nose is it's got 2 holes. And you got 1 mouth. That's strange. What do you put into your mouth? I see you've been putting like vegetable product in your mouth. Fruit, vegetable product. In fact, lots of that between the orange juice and, the little bar things over there made with grain, and the muffins made with grains. And you're drinking coffee. Many of you are drinking coffee. That's made with a vegetable product as well, right? The bean from the coffee, actually from the fruit, not vegetable, technically. But yeah, you're putting that. But I did not see anybody eating the coffee dispenser. Did you notice that? Nobody ate the coffee dispenser. That's just really strange, isn't it? I read once about a prophet eating the Word of God, but none of you has taken a page out of your scriptures and eaten that. Why not? Why am I even asking these random questions? Are you wondering by now where I'm going with this? I'm wondering how far I'll go with this, but I could go a lot further. Let's see, what else do I want to ask? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I suppose I'm a man, right? I mean, I suppose that I am. I suppose that my wife is a woman. I didn't ask for that. You're a man or a woman, male or female. Did you ask for that? No, you didn't ask for that. You were born and it was that way. You didn't ask to be able to eat the fruit on the table. You didn't ask not to be able to eat the metal in the coffee dispenser, or not to eat the plastic in the water bottle itself. You didn't ask whether or not you would have hair, whether or not you would have 2 eyes or 3 eyes, whether or not you'd be able to smell and to see and to hear and to taste and to touch. You didn't ask for any of that. You didn't ask to be here. You didn't ask to exist. You didn't ask what human existence should be like. You didn't decide what human existence should be like. You had no role in any of that. You received all of that because you're a creature. Not a creator, you're a creature. The topic we're supposed to be discussing this morning is reality. That is the main issue that I'm talking about this morning. Reality, our perceptions of reality. Let me ask you a question. What is reality? That was a question. I know oftentimes preachers or speakers ask a question they never really want you to answer. So you're like, does he really want me to answer this time? I actually do. Yeah, what is reality? What is reality?
What seems true?
What seems true? I'm not sure if I could live with the word seems on that.
Well, we're in a shifting world.
Right? I didn't ask how we perceive reality. What is reality? What is actually reality?
What God said is
Tell me about the chair you're sitting on. God didn't say anything about your chair. Or did he? What's reality? I'll give you a definition from the dictionary, if I can find it in my notes. I did write this down. Did I write it somewhere else? Oh, the state or quality of being real, that which is actual. Your chair is, in a sense, reality because it's a concrete thing in the real world that is actual. Concrete things in the real world that are actual. It is actual that everybody in this room has 2 arms. There's not somebody here that lost an arm, right? Everybody raise both your hands. I want to make sure. Okay, we're all right. Yeah. That's reality. Reality is, in the very concrete world, you have 2 arms. Where does that come from? See, the question is, where did that reality come from? And then we're going to get back to what Eva said. How do I perceive that? Because you have a perception filter called your worldview. But we're talking about reality this morning, and my point in this first session is where reality came from. And what is the answer about where reality came from? It's what God says in His Word. In fact, reality comes from these words. And God, what? Said. And God said, let there be light. Nobody decided what reality should be like. No human being that you know of decided what reality should be like, whether they like reality or not. They didn't decide reality for themselves or about themselves, which is really, that's the part that people in our world don't like. They want to decide reality about themselves and for themselves, but they can't. All reality comes from these words, and God said, let there be light. So open your Bibles with me to page 1. I asked the question, where does reality come from? Is reality something we can create? Is reality something we can manipulate? Is reality something that belongs to us or something that happens to us? Genesis 1, verse 1, in the beginning, God. First subject. Okay? Let me just be very clear about this. Grammatically speaking, you are not the subject. I am not the subject. A subject is something that actually acts in grammar. An object is that which is acted upon, which is why in English grammar, the subject comes first. Joey threw the ball. Joey is the subject, he's the actor, the ball is the object, that which is acted on. The very first subject in Scripture, the very first actor in Scripture is God. In the beginning, that's when God, first subject, first actor, created the heavens and the earth, which is a Jewish way of saying all things. They are the object. Everything about you, everything you see, everything you perceive, everything you believe you know, all of it is the object of God's work. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. So what was the earth like when God started? The first word, formless. This word is also used in the Old Testament to talk about a wasteland, an empty, deserted, untamed, wild place. That's what the earth was like when God started. It was an untamed sort of wilderness, not inhabitable, not ordered, chaotic. It was void, empty. In fact, there is a rhyme between those two words in Hebrew, tohu vabohu, and they both sort of mean empty, and there was darkness. And God peels back the darkness in verse 1, saying, "Let there be light." God spoke the reality of light into existence with a word. Light's not here because you and I thought we needed it to see, or because we liked it. No. Light's been here longer than all of us. Because God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good. Light is good. Do you agree that light is good? Where does the value that light is good come from? It comes from God. Because God saw the light, that it was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. That's creating order in the chaos that the world used to be. He separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning one day. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters from the waters." So at first there was only waters. There was darkness over the surface of the deep. And here God is creating more order out of this chaos. He creates an expanse and puts it between the waters above and now there's waters beneath. God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning a second day. Verse 9, then God said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. More order being brought out of the chaos by God's word. God called the dry land earth. In Hebrew, you would have come across Adamah, which has the same root as what? Adam, which means man, interestingly enough. Yep, God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. God produced more order, created more order in his world. Then God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees on the earth bearing fruit after their kind, with seed in them." You just took a bite of fruit. As I said that, you just took a bite of fruit, and there were seeds in it, weren't there? Yep, and that fruit came from the kind of plant that it is from, right? That's kind of circular the way that I said that, but my point is, it has been bearing seed after its own kind, and we're going to see in a moment that God said, "Let that be food," which is why you can eat that, and not the coffee dispenser. And you didn't decide it was that way, God did. But this is part of God ordering the world that he is creating. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and morning a third day. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." What day is this? What is today? Saturday. Saturday sounds like the name of what planet? Saturn day. What's tomorrow? Sunday. That's kind of strange because we have a sun. The day after tomorrow is called, it's like the word moon but with one less O. Think that's a coincidence? Wait till you look up what Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mean. They're all the names of planets, visible with the naked eye. What did I just read? Let there be lights in the expanse of heaven to separate the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons, for days and for years. And that's what they do. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, a greater light to govern the day and a lesser light to govern the night. And he made the stars also. Hebrew has words for sun and moon. You see them elsewhere in the book of Genesis even. But when Moses wrote this, he chose not to use those words because people worshiped the sun and the moon at that time. And so he is depersonalizing them. He is making them less than deities. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on earth and to govern the day and the night and to separate the light from the darkness, creating more order in the wilderness that the world used to be. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. Then God said, "Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens." What did God create on day 2? He created that expanse, didn't he? And he separated the waters above from the waters below. But they were still empty. They were void. And now they're being filled with life that God created. God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. And God saw that it was good. You see, there are things under the waters that no man has seen living. We still have not found it all. And even though man may have seen some of them, man does not see all of them. And you know what? The reality is they are there because God created them. Not because we wanted them there, because God created them. These creatures God blessed, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. It's there because God created it. Then God said, "Let the earth," that's something else that he had created on what day? Day 3, when he gathered the waters together in one place, still void, still empty. God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after their kind." And it was so. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind, and God saw that it was good. Something's still missing. God's work since the beginning has been to take this wilderness that we saw in verse 2, this formless waste place that's empty, and he has been ordering it, making it habitable, making it a good place to be. He's filled it with creatures that he has created according to his own will. And he's not done. There's one more thing that God needs, or that God desires. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image." What does that mean? Let us make man in our own image. When I went to Cambodia, I had just gotten out of seminary a year before. I had read all the theology books written by Westerners, and I actually had in a doctrinal statement that the image of man in God focuses on man's intellect, man's will, man's emotions. I started thinking, after I lived in Cambodia, I'm seeing all these peasant farmers, peasant animal herders that were living around day in and day out, thinking, these people are an awful lot like the ancient Israelites. And the unavoidable thing about this verse in the Cambodian language, Khmer, is that the word translated image comes across as the word for an idol. If you were reading this in Hebrew, let's say you were a Hebrew peasant farmer, a Hebrew peasant herder, and you were reading Genesis 1 as we have been doing this morning, and you came across that word, that would look a lot like the word for idol. In fact, that word is used for idol in several other places in the Old Testament. Does that convey to the people that first heard these words written by Moses intellect, will, and emotion? internal characteristics of a human being? It's actually pretty shocking. Especially because, as I've been saying as we go through here, that Moses is stripping away the deities that they worshiped, such as the sun and the moon. He's stripping them of their authority as deities, as God decides what this sun and this moon, or this greater light, this lesser light, and these stars will do. They don't actually govern your lives. All they govern is time. He's stripping them of their personality, their objects, a greater light, a lesser light, and the stars also. And then he turns right around and he says this about you and about me. After this arguing against idolatry, he says this about you and about me. We're idols. How many of you actually seen an idol? Gone to a temple and seen an idol? Pastor Thomas, Julie, and I. Anybody else? This might be why Western commentators and theologians see this word, and the first thing they think about is something they do know about, what's inside of a human being. What is it that makes people worship an idol? What does the idol do? What is an idol? What did an ancient Israelite think about an idol? That Moses can use this as a metaphor for what you and I are. You've seen pictures of idols, right? What do idols normally look like? Okay, we're going to Cambodia. You're coming with me. We go into a temple. The temple is for what religion? Buddhism. When you look in the temple, there's a giant idol sitting on not a throne in this case, because they normally are, but in Buddhism he's sitting actually on a coiled up snake. But you're seeing an image of a man, right? You're seeing a representation made out of stone, made out of wood, sometimes wood overlaid with gold or brass or some other precious metal. And it looks like what? It looks like a man. Other idols look like animals. But most of them look like a man. What does that idol even mean? Why are people going in there and bowing down to that idol? Is that idol Buddha? No, that idol is not Buddha. But they believe the spirit of Buddha resides, is present in that idol. Why are they bowing down to that idol? Because they love it, they can't get enough of it, it's so important to them they have to have it? No, that's not what idolatry is about. We talk about heart idols all the time in our culture. That's because we don't have real ones and don't know what real idols are about. They believe that that idol has some manifestation of the spirit of Buddha and has power to change things in their world the same way you think about science. They're looking at that idol to help. There's a temple outside of our city called Tak Leang Mueang, and they believe that that ancestral spirit that has an idol is powerful and can change things like whether or not it rains this year so that we get a full crop and can actually survive and prosper. They believe that the spirit inside that idol can change things. It has power. They don't believe that that actually is Tak Leang Mueang. They believe it's a manifestation of him, the presence of him, and the power of him to change things in his real world. And that's not changed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The image of God in man means that somehow, some way, you and I represent him. We are, in some sense, a manifestation of God on the earth that he created. He created us in his image and in his likeness. God is invisible. When they see us, they are perceiving something about God. We are his representative. And we possess some of God's powers, which is why I believe it's appropriate that in theology we talk about attributes that are communicable. We do have powers that God does, not to the extent that he does. There is no limit to the powers of God, but we possess some of those attributes, some of those powers in limited, finite ways for the very same purposes. Do you believe me? Does this sound really weird to you? You ever heard this before? Read this with me. Verse 26, then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. And an Israelite is wondering, where is he going with this? He's saying that we're an idol. And let them do what? Rule. Let them rule. That's power. God created them in his image. God gave man power. Power to do what? Let them rule over the things that we just read about that God created. Let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Man is a physical, visible manifestation of God here on the earth that he created for the purpose of ruling, for the purpose of having dominion over it. Where do the words rule and dominion come from in our vocabulary? Who has those kinds of things? Kings. Yeah, kings. Those are royal words. Let them rule and have dominion. We used to live in Virginia. In Virginia is a theme park called King's Dominion. These are royal words. Man is to be a vice regent below God, ruling in God's place as a manifestation of him, representing him to the creation that he has made for his own glory. And we are to exercise dominion over it. Like the idol has power in the mind of the worshiper, so God has granted us to have power over his creation, to rule over it and to have dominion. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So much to unpack in those verses, and I don't have time this morning. But I must say this. Regardless of how this culture is raging against those words, something about you as a young woman, and you as a young man, and you as young men, and you as a young woman, manifests God to others. God made them emphatically in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created him. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on earth. Then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, and it shall be food for you. And that's why you came in this morning and went right over there and knew what to do. You knew what to eat and what not to eat. Nobody ate the coffee dispenser. Nobody ate the racks or the tables or the tablecloths. You all ate the fruit. You may have wanted to eat the coffee dispenser, but it wouldn't have mattered, because God determined the reality that you will eat fruit. God determined the reality that you will have 2 arms and 2 feet and 1 mouth into which you can only put certain things. Before you were born, you didn't ask what to be like. God made you male, God made you female, and he made you that way for a purpose. He gave you 2 eyes with which you can perceive the reality that he has created. You see, you believe that I'm standing up here behind a real wood pulpit because you can see it with your eyes and you can perceive it with your ears, and those things work with your mind to produce what's called knowledge, or belief at least. You have perceptors of reality. And knowledge is when the things that you perceive with your eyes and the things which you perceive with your ears correspond with the actual reality that is before you. If you look at this and say it's a truck, that's not knowledge. You can believe with all your heart this is a truck. But until your organs of perception agree with the reality that this is a bottle of water, you have nothing more than belief and quite possibly insanity. If you believe I'm holding a fish, you have some problems. What do you believe about these words? That's my question. Whether you look at the page I'm about to read or you listen to me reading it, what do you believe about these words? God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply." I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to reflect on the meaning of these words through the question. What is sex about? Let me read those words again. Answer the question from the reality of what I'm about to read to you if you hear it, or you're about to read for yourself if you see it, or both at the same time. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, the male and the female, and God said to them, the male and the female, "Be fruitful and multiply." What's the answer to my question? What's sex about? I like your use of words. He said procreation. Interesting choice of words, actually. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say barely, in the sense, the bare word, creation. Why didn't he say creation? Why would creation not work? We can't create. We're not capable of creation. We are capable of imaging creation. We are capable of representing God's act of creation. But we are not capable of creation. There's not a person in this room that can create. Forget about the words, this is a creative person. No, you're not. You're not a creative person. You're not creative. Make something I've never seen before, please. Oh, you can't do that. This is wood. That's plastic. The frame of my phone is made of steel or aluminum or something like that. Make me something that's not plastic or wood or metal. You can't. All you can do is take what already exists and reshape it, use it in new ways, do different things with it. In fact, plastic, where did it start? Under the deep blue sea as crude oil, or deep below the rocks as natural gas. That's kind of weird. You take natural gas and you wind up with motor oil, you wind up with hard plastic. But you've not created anything. All you've done is change it. God makes them male and female and then says, "Be fruitful and multiply." And have they created anything new? I'll show you what they've created. Turn over to chapter 5. I'll show you actually how they've procreated, because they haven't created anything. Chapter 5, verse 1, this is the book of the generations of Adam, in the day when God created man. You see the word there? In the day when God created man. He, that's God, made him, that's man, in the likeness of God. You see that? Moses is trying to get you to think back to verses 26 and 27 of chapter 1. He, that's God, created them, plural, man. Again, what? Male and female. and he blessed them and named them man in the day that they were created. That act of naming is a demonstration of authority. You ever notice that kids don't name their parents? Dogs don't name their owners? You ever notice that? It always goes one way. The one with authority always names the one under authority. Like when Jesus takes a man named Simon and gives him the name Peter. He created them male and female. He blessed them and named them man in the day when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own what? Likeness. According to his what? Image. Tell me about Adam's likeness and image. What was Adam's likeness and image? Adam was created in what? The image of God and in his likeness. And Adam named him, see the act of naming there, Seth. The authority is passed down to the next generation. And so Adam did not create Seth. Adam, having received the image of God within himself, procreated as a man with his wife Eve, and Seth was made in the image of Adam, the way that Adam was made in the image of God. And that's the reality of who and what Seth is, as the child of Adam and Eve. So that's why I asked questions when I opened up. Why are you here? Why are you like that? Does it even matter that you're like that? Well, yeah, it does. Is there a purpose for you being like that? Is there a reason why you're like this particular way? Yes. Because all of reality is the result of God creating things to bring order out of chaos, to establish his representative on this planet, to rule it in his stead as a royal figure under him, to fulfill and satisfy his purposes, to represent God in a physical, visible way, so that we become part of perceptible reality in ways that glorify God. And we are, as those made in the image of God, to do all things according to the purposes for which he created them. One of those things is we procreate. As male and female, we procreate. We take this image of God that he has blessed us with, and we pass it on with authority that God has granted us to the next generation. Now, I'm going to close with just a couple of points here. Because God created everything, he owns it. It belongs to him. It must be used for his purposes. And nobody else has the right to do something different. Let's say you wind up making a lot of money at work. You buy a plot of land and you build a house. You decide how you want your house to be. How many rooms it's going to have, what kinds of rooms it's going to have. You've paid for the whole thing. Somebody else comes into the house and starts taking things that you paid for out of it. What's that called? Theft. Somebody comes in and decides they don't like the house the way that you made it, and they start changing things, breaking things down. What's that called? Vandalism. Who is the master of the home? The one who built it, the one who owns it. Who is the master of this home that you and I call planet Earth? God is. I'm going to read to you, and you can just listen is good enough once I find it. What it means in Paul's mind that God created all things. Okay, now, understand when I say all things, I'm talking about the entire reality that you experience day in and day out. Things in reality that you take for granted and don't even think about when you're brushing your teeth, like authority in the world, authority in society, the color of your hair, the fact that you have hair, the fact that you need to eat and can because it's been provided for you, the fact that you were born male and female and can procreate. What does all of this mean? All these things, everything, all things that are in reality, what does it mean? Paul writes at the end of Romans chapter 11, "For from him and through him and to him are all things." Whatever it is you can perceive with your eyes and your ears, and much more beside that you're not even aware of, it's all from him. He owns it. He's the master. It's from him, not from you. Listen, look at yourself. You didn't ask to be here. You came from him. The fact that you're a man or a woman came from him. The fact that you ate the fruit and not the coffee dispenser came from him. All things are from him. All things are through him. They operate through him. They continue. They persist. I have been meditating on the cows eating grass in Psalm 104. They don't need you. If every man on the planet died, the cow in Psalm 104 would still eat the grass. The grass would still grow. The cow would still eat. More of them would eat without us, right? Because we eat cows. The cow does not need you and me because all things are through him. They depend on him. And all things are to him for his purposes. He has created with a purpose, and that includes you. You are from him. Didn't ask to be here this morning. You are through him. You live because of him. You live the way that you do because of him. And you must live for his purposes to him. Because he created you, to whom be all the glory, not to you. You're the object. He is the subject. He's the actor. He's the creator. You are the creature. You're the recipient of the gift and the beauty of life. You're the recipient of the gift and the beauty of the image of God in you, in your physical body, manifesting something about what God is, receiving just a piece of his power to accomplish his purposes in the world. You have received that. Use it for his purposes. And Paul closes with these words, "To whom be the glory forever." God gets the praise. He has done all things well. So that's why we're here this morning. That's why we have 2 eyes to perceive the reality that God's created, 2 ears to perceive the reality that God's created. That's why we're here as men and women, to procreate, to fill the earth, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth with the image of its creator, displaying his goodness and his glory, fulfilling his purposes in bringing order out of chaos. so that when God sees you and I, he says, it was very good. We're going to stop there and take a 10-minute break, and we'll continue at the top of the hour, which is 10, right?